Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make a couple of Valentine crafts and we're going to start with this foam heart. It's actually the size that it could be a small wreath, so that's what we're going to do with it. And I got this from the Dollar Tree, and generally I would get some of this glitter off of it, but since I'm going to be covering it anyway, I'm not going to worry about that. I've just torn some strips of muslin fabric, and you can use any kind you want here, but I've just cut some, and now I'm going to be just wrapping this. So I'm just going to start with some glue on the end of my piece and then just keep wrapping it until I've covered the whole thing. So you could use a number of fabrics here. You could use some torn strips from some drop cloth, or you could cut some strips from some of the Warm and Natural. You want something that you can't really see through, and because this muslin is a little bit thinner than I would like for it to be, you can somewhat see through it. So where you can see through it bad, I'm gonna just kind of do another layer over the top of it. But if you can just kind of slightly see through it, I'm not really going to worry about that because this is going to get another layer of fabric anyway, a different kind of fabric. I'm going to be putting some lace on this, so you just need it to be covered for the most part. You want it covered completely actually, but you just need it to not to be able to be seen through for the most part. So if this were a lighter color, it wouldn't be an issue, but with this pink, you just don't want that pink showing through, or I don't in this case. So I'm just wrapping until I have the whole thing wrapped, and like I said, in places where I feel like you can see through a little bit too much, then I'll just kind of go over that just a little bit more. Now, if this were just a circle, it would be a lot easier to wrap, but if you've never wrapped a heart like this, in that little dip in the top and then the little point on the bottom, those are a little bit tricky to get covered, but you just kind of have to work with it and pull it tighter than usual, but it will work. And like I said, once I get this covered completely, then I'm going to be using some lace, and I decided on some wider lace, and I thought about just wrapping that also the same way that I'm wrapping this, except to kind of wrap it like a candy cane stripe and skip. But I decided on a different way, mostly so I could save some of my lace, because as you know, lace is not cheap, and a lot of times I'll cut strips from an old lace shower curtain, but in this case I'm using some actual lace ribbon that I thrifted. And I actually thrifted several pieces of this and thought I was stocked up really good, but when you craft a lot with lace, as I have lately, you realize that it doesn't go as far as you hope it would, and I'm starting to get low, so I'm just kind of trying to be a little bit more cautious. And like I said, I double wrap this in places, and that's what I'm doing here, is just going back over and making certain that you can't see anything through it. So the way I decided to add this lace was to wrap it long ways. And doing it this way, it's not going to reach all the way around, but this is going to be used as a wreath. So as long as I try to keep the back neat, it doesn't have to have the lace coverage. So what I decided to do here was just to glue one side of the lace to the bottom of the front of the wreath, if that makes sense. So if the wreath is laying down, then this bottom edge is where I'm gluing. So I just glue that all the way around. So gluing this outer edge was very simple, but making some of these turns and getting it to wrap neatly took a little bit of maneuvering, but it did work. So what I did was, once I got this all glued, then I just kind of wrapped it a little at a time, and if I felt like that it was too much of a turn for it, then I just clipped it in places, and you'll see here in a little bit what I mean by that, until I was able to get it covered. So I just need the front of this to be covered. So I'm making a couple little cuts here and there, and I'll just go back over that top there with another piece of lace to get that covered. But like I said, I'm just going to make some little cuts here in these curved areas, and then I'll just kind of wrap it a little at a time until I get it covered. Now I'm going to do another step on this, so if I get some areas that I'm just really not happy with the look of, and actually I felt like it covered pretty good. I didn't feel like I needed to cover anything up, but I'm going to be adding some Shabby roses to this. So if I were to get an area like that, then I would have just put one of those over the top of it. So don't feel like this has to be wrapped perfectly, because it doesn't at all. Now I just really like neutral colors, and when it comes to hearts, I want to keep them neutral, because after Valentine's Day, I'm kind of doing this with Valentine's Day in mind, but after Valentine's Day, then I want to still be able to be used in your decor, because that's just a very short-lived holiday, and I know that some of you decorate for it anyway, because it's such a soft look, but I just think it's nice when you can go ahead and leave that out, and it doesn't have to be so limited. But now the other craft that I'm going to be doing is very limited to Valentine's Day, so occasionally I will do ones like that. But like I said, I do like to keep most of my Valentine decor neutral. So once I get the front of this covered with lace, then the next step is going to be to add some of my Shabby roses. So I have some videos where I do those close up. But I think I will, instead of attaching one of those like I generally do, I'm just going to go ahead and do a close-up of some of these roses, and then you won't have to go to those other videos. So what I do is I take a strip of fabric. In this case, I've just cut some strips from some lace. And actually, on this particular rose, I tied two strips together. So I used a strip of some torn or some cut lace, and then a strip of some torn tea towel. And I tied a knot in the end of both of those together, and then I'm going to just kind of twist and wrap both of those. More often than not, I just wrap it with one piece of fabric, but it just adds some more dimension if you just go ahead and use two different types. And then as you twist and wrap, you're exposing different parts of the fabric. You may get more lace in one round and maybe more of the tea towel in the other. So as you can see, I'm just twisting it and then wrapping it and securing it with some glue. So to add some extra dimension, every now and then you'll want to change the direction that you're twisting. But then when you get your rose the size that you want it, you just kind of clip that off, and if you need to secure that end with some extra hot glue, then you just add a little dab of glue and make sure that that's secure. So there's our first rose. And now I'll zoom in on this one a little bit more. So again, you tie a knot in the end of some fabric, and in this one, I'm also using 2 strips, 1 strip of lace and 1 strip of the torn tea towel. So you'll just twist both of those pieces together and wrap. Add a little dab of glue here and there, twist and wrap. You actually need to add a dab every time you twist and wrap because you don't want any of that not secured to your wreath. You could actually make these without making them on a base. I just feel like it works better if you have a base. So if you're going to make them ahead to put on something else, then you can always cut a little piece of cloth to make them on, and then you can cut that cloth down the size that you want it, where you can't see the cloth behind it, if that makes sense. But if you've got a base that you can just go ahead and build them on, that's always best. So I have this one zoomed in for you also, and I'm just going to tie a knot, like I said, in the end of some fabric. And in this case, I am still using the lace and the tea towel together. I think on this, on a few of these, I just use 1 piece, but when I like to add some extra texture, then I do it this way. And I'm also not just wanting that extra texture, I like the extra shades of white here also. So just add these wherever you feel like it needs it. I'm just doing a little cluster of them, and I don't at this point know how many that I'm doing. I just kind of add them until I feel like it looks good. These flowers I feel like are the easiest flowers to make, and honestly I think I like them more than any of the flowers that I've made. I don't make a whole lot of other ones after trying these for the first time. I think a lot of the reason for that though is because I really like the shabby chic look, and I feel like these flowers lend well to the shabby chic style of decor. I want to say thank you to a couple of very sweet viewers. I got some packages this week, and one was from Ann Sweet, and her name is true to her actions because she is very sweet. And she came to visit me at the store a couple weeks ago, I think. And I got a package from her today of a cute little teacup arrangement, and I just want her to know how much I appreciate that. It was beautiful. And then my other viewer, Myra Morgan, I got a package from her, and some of the most beautiful napkins I think I've seen. And my next video, Myra, I will be doing a craft using one of those napkins because I just fell in love with it, and I thought it would be perfect for the little sewing machine drawer that I'm going to make over. So that will be on my next video. So here I'm just adding some little beads just to give this a little extra dimension and interest. And so I'm just going to add a few of those where I feel like it needs a little fill in. And then that's all that I'm going to do on these little flowers. And now I'm going to cut some strips of fabric and some pieces of ribbon and make a shabby bow for this. I said I used some ribbon, but it looks like I've just cut strips from the lace and then torn strips of fabric. And I'm just taking several of these and just kind of crisscrossing them and alternating fabrics here. And then I'm going to take a strip of fabric and tie them together in the center and that will make a shabby bow. And it's up to you how many you add here. Sometimes you would add several, but for a project like this, I don't feel like I need that many, so I'm going to keep this one a little bit more simple. Now, I like to not only use different types of textures of fabric, but I also like to use different shades of white on this. And again, that's totally up to you. But not keeping it just one solid color will, I feel like, give it a better look. So I just tie that together in the center. And then I'm just going to kind of trim it up and glue it to the bottom of my heart. So, like I said, I'm just going to kind of trim this up a little more even and then just glue it with some hot glue right on the bottom of the heart here. And then after I get that glued on, I'm just going to take some of my pearl accents and just glue a little piece right in the center of my bow. And that's very optional. I just wanted to dress that bow up a little bit. Like I said, just a matter of preference, but I'm just going to glue one right to the center there. And then once I put a hanger on this, that's all it's going to need. And if you watch me long, you know that I generally just make a hanger from a strip of fabric. In this case, I'm using a strip of the Dollar Tree lace ribbon. And I just took maybe a 12-inch section and tied a knot in each end, and now I'm just going to glue that knot to the back of each side of the heart, and then that will be my hanger. And because this is lightweight, there's going to be plenty of strength to hold this. So this could be complete like this, but I just decided I wanted to add just a little something extra to it. So I'm just taking some regular Elmer's glue, and I'm going to take a paintbrush and just very lightly brush some of the high spots on some of my roses. And as you can see there, I'm not using a lot of glue at all. I'm just going to take that glue and kind of go around the high spots of my roses. And I'm doing that so that I can then sprinkle some glitter over the top. And I don't like the metallic glitters, and I know a lot of you do. And but I'm just using an iridescent glitter because of I just feel like it gives it more of a look that goes better with the pearls. And it's also a very subtle glitter, so I like that about it also. And I've been asked where I get that glitter, and I get that from Walmart. So now the next item that I'm going to be doing is a Valentine tree. And I know that some of you put trees up year-round to decorate for different holidays. I'm definitely not one of those people. But I saw these little pink trees from the Dollar Tree this year, so I picked up a couple. And the reason that I picked up a couple is because I know their little Christmas trees are very, very sparse. So I wanted to be able to put two of these together. So what I did was just spread everything out and then flatten one side of each one and then put them together that way. So I spread them out just so I can see how sparse they're going to be. And then it's going to be easier to put them together because, like I said, I'll just flatten that one side. And then I'll put my two flat sides together and then secure those stems, or the trunk, I guess you would call it, together. Just by wrapping some of the branches around it. And that will hold it together. Plus, I'm going to be wrapping that trunk, so that's going to hold it more also. So as you can see here, I'm flattening one side. I started to put it together without doing that, and it does not work well. So just flatten one side, and then like I said, you're just gonna put it together by wrapping just a few of those little wire stems around the trunk. And then, like I said, after you get that secured, then I'm just using some soft yarn that has a little bit of an iridescent look to it also, that I thrifted. So I'm assuming you can probably get this yarn at Walmart, but I did thrift this. So I'm just wrapping the entire trunk, and then I'll secure that with some hot glue. And then I'm going to wrap each section between the limbs that I feel like is still showing. So it gets a little bit tedious at that point to wrap it, but I just didn't want any of that wire showing. I just felt like this was going to be a better look. So like I said, I clip that and go ahead and secure it with glue, and then wherever I see some of that trunk, then I'm just going to wrap it as well. And then as soon as I got that wrapped, I decided that I didn't want to use this bottom, so I'm going to be putting this in a container. And I just decided on this little silver plate. I guess this is a sugar bowl without the lid. So I'm just going to put some floral foam inside it and secure that to the bottom with some glue. And then I can take the white piece off the bottom and just stick it down into this foam. But I'm just kind of breaking off pieces and making sure that I have it packed in there pretty tightly. And then I just added some glue to the bottom of this trunk and stuck it down in there, and then that's a good solid hold. Now I got these little hearts, these little wooden hearts from the Dollar Tree this year. And but I wanted to do some decoupage on it. And this napkin, I got a set of these napkins at Marshall's probably a couple years ago, if not more. And I'm still working on using them all up. So I've even given some of them away. But when I look at this napkin, I think these are Valentine colors. That's what it makes me think of. So I'm removing both layers of the napkin except for the printed layer, and I'm going to be decoupaging that printed layer onto both sides of this heart. And because these are so small, what I'm going to do is just coat both sides of them with some glue. And then I'm just going to lay them right onto the napkin, and then I can just kind of fold that napkin over the top of them, and that will cover both sides, and then I can go back and trim that. So like I said, I just paint it on both sides, and I'm not being careful here. I'm just making sure that I've got both sides covered, and then I'm laying them on there. Now, I'm not going to be using these red ones because I know that these are going to have different looks depending on the color that's on them. But I felt like that red was just too much, and it would show through this, so I decided not to do them. I could have painted them, but I didn't want to go to that much trouble, and I felt like this was going to be enough. I just want enough on this tree that it's just very obvious that it's a Valentine tree. So like I said, I just put all these on here, and then I'll fold my napkin over the top of it. And because I've already coated both sides with the glue, then it will glue right on there. So as you can see there, I tore part of my napkin. I got a little bit too rough and had to move it over to another part of the napkin. But now I'm just kind of lightly brushing my brush over it to make sure that it's getting a good secure hold. And then I just went through and cut all these apart, and then I'm going to take my sanding block and neaten up the edges. And if you sand downward, then what it will do is it will remove that excess napkin and then clean up those edges. So just take your sanding block downwards on one side, and once you get around that one side, then flip it over, and you'll sand it downwards on the edges of the other side, and that will completely neaten up these edges, and you'll have a good clean sanded edge. So you just kind of go through that process with each of these, and it really doesn't take that long because this sands very easily. But you do want to make sure at this point I've let it dry well. So if you try to do this before you let it dry well, then you'll pull some of that off and you'll just make a mess. It won't work. So let it dry well, and then take your sanding block and go around the edges. You can even use a nail file, an emery board for this, but I just like using the sanding block. So once we get all of these cleaned up, then we're going to make some little ornaments out of them. And like I said, I'm going to keep this very simple. So what I'm going to do is make a little hanger for each of them using some ribbon that I get at the Dollar Tree. And it's just a sheer lavender colored ribbon. So I just cut a little length of that, long enough to make a hanger. And then I'm just going to glue that little piece of ribbon to both the front and the back of the top. And then on the front, then I've just tied a little bow out of it and then glued that over the top of my glue. And I do that for each of these. I just cut maybe about 3 to 4 inches. And then, like I said, glue that to the front and back of the top. And I'm sorry I'm out of frame here doing that, but I just glued it to the front and the back of the top of the ribbon. And then that will make my hanger. And then I'm going to just glue that little ribbon over the top of the front. So as you can see here, I'm just tying a little bow. And then I'll clip the ends of it to make it the size that I want it, and then just glue that over the front part of the hanger. And then once I get all those finished, then I can use them to decorate my tree. Now I could have added a bow to both sides of this, but I just decided on one side, and then I'll just hang it where that one side shows. And obviously you can get as elaborate with these as you want. I wanted mine simple because I can see a little tree this size being a neat little centerpiece. Especially if you were doing a Valentine dinner or banquet, these would make really neat little centerpieces. So like I said, I'm just kind of scattering these throughout the tree. And I won't be adding any other decor to this. So once I get this decorated, then all I need to do is where my floral foam is partially showing. It's really not bad at all. But I just took some lace and just stuffed it down inside that just to hide that. And I didn't even bother hot gluing it. You could do that, but I just kind of stuffed it down in there. And then this little tree is complete. And I just really like how that turned out. You might could add some white to this just to add a little more dimension and color. But like I said, I just wanted to keep mine more simple. And I was just kind of concentrating on the purple and pinks. Now this would also be really pretty if you did it with a white tree. If you had just a small white tree, then you could decorate it for Valentine's Day, and it would look really pretty also. As you can see here, that little bit of the iridescent glitter just added a little extra layer of interest to that little heart. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.